A simple waitress watched police drag a terrified stranger into her diner at midnight. Something about his desperate eyes made her step between him and their guns. The lights exploded. He whispered, "You protected a king," and vanished into the rain. Now she's learned he's a vampire. Hunters are coming for them both, and her act of mercy created a magical bond that tied their lives together forever. The fluorescent lights of Eddie's roadside diner buzzed like angry wasps at 12:47 a.m. Mara wiped down the counter for the third time that hour, her feet screaming in her worn sneakers. The rain hammered against the windows, so hard it sounded like the sky was trying to break in. She was counting tips, $23 for a 10-hour shift, when the police cruiser's headlights swept across the parking lot. Two officers hauled someone out of the back seat. The man stumbled in the rain, his clothes torn and hanging off his thin frame. Even from inside, Mara could see he was shaking. "Great," she muttered. "Just what I need before closing." The door crashed open. Officer Dennison, a regular who always left expired coupons instead of tips, dragged the man inside. The stranger's bare feet left wet prints on the checkered floor. His dark hair was plastered to his face, and when he looked up, Mara's breath caught. His eyes were gray. Not blue-gray or hazel. Pure gray, like storm clouds. "Coffee." "Two." Dennison barked at Mara, shoving the man into a corner booth with more force than necessary. The stranger didn't resist. He just sat there, staring at his hands like he'd never seen them before. Officer Park, Dennison's partner, yanked the man's wrists behind his back. "Wait," the stranger said quietly. His voice had an odd quality, formal, careful. "Please wait." "Shut it," Dennison snapped. Mara poured the coffee, her instincts prickling. Something felt wrong. The man wasn't drunk or high. He wasn't aggressive. He looked lost, terrified. She brought the mugs over. Up close, she noticed things that made her stomach twist. The man's skin was too pale, almost translucent. His lips had a bluish tint. And those eyes, they seemed to glow faintly in the diner's harsh light. "What did he do?" Mara asked, setting the cups down. "None of your business," Dennison said, but Park answered anyway. "Found him wandering Highway 9, no ID, talking nonsense about." Park stopped himself. "Just get back to work." The stranger's eyes locked onto Mara's. In that split second, she saw something she recognized from her own mirror every morning. Exhaustion. Soul-deep weariness. But beneath it, there was something else. Desperation. A silent plea. "Help me." She should have walked away. She had student loans, rent due in 3 days, and a second job interview at 7 a.m. Getting involved with whatever this was would be stupid. But Mara had never been good at walking away from people who needed help. It was why she'd failed out of nursing school. Too much empathy, not enough detachment.
"He looks sick," she said.
"Hypothermic, maybe. Shouldn't you take him to a hospital instead of?" "I said back off." Dennison cut her off. The stranger spoke again, his voice barely a whisper. "I mean no harm. I don't understand where I am." The last thing I remember, he stopped, his gray eyes widening in confusion.
"The year."
"What year is this?" Park laughed. "Oh, he's definitely high on something." 2024, Mara said softly. She didn't know why she answered. The stranger went completely still. His face drained of what little color it had. 200 years, he whispered. "They kept me for 200 years. Dennison's hand went to his gun. Not his taser. His actual gun. That's when Mara knew this wasn't a normal arrest. "Hey, whoa," she said, stepping between them. "What are you doing? He's unarmed. He's not resisting." "Step aside, ma'am," Dennison said coldly.
His voice had changed.
Flatter, like he was reading lines. "No." The word came out of Mara's mouth before her brain could stop it. "You can't just shoot someone because they're confused. Look at him. He needs medical attention, not." "This doesn't concern you." Dennison's hand tightened on the gun. Park moved too, circling around. They were coordinating, like they'd done this before. The stranger looked at Mara with something like wonder. You defend me? You don't even know what I am. I know you're a person, Mara said, her heart hammering. And I know something's very wrong here. Last warning, Dennison said.
Move. Now.
Mara planted her feet. Her hands were shaking, but she didn't move. The stranger stood slowly. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that made the air feel heavy.
Enough.
I will not let you harm her for showing mercy. The temperature in the diner dropped 20 degrees in an instant. Mara's breath came out in visible puffs. The coffee in the mugs began to freeze, ice crystals spreading across the surface. What the? Park started to say. Every light in the diner exploded simultaneously. Glass rained down as Mara threw her arms over her head. An invisible force, like a shockwave, slammed into both officers, sending them flying backward into tables. Chairs toppled. The register crashed to the floor. In the darkness, lit only by the police cruiser's lights outside, Mara saw the stranger standing perfectly still. His eyes were no longer gray. They were black. Completely black, like pools of ink. Run, she told him. He stared at her for a long moment. Then he moved, faster than anything human could move. 1 second he was in the booth, the next he was at the door. He paused at the threshold, rain pouring in behind him. You protected a king, he said, his voice echoing strangely. That bond cannot be undone. Then he was gone, disappearing into the storm. Mara stood frozen, her ears ringing. Both officers were unconscious, sprawled among the broken furniture. The diner looked like a tornado had hit it. Her phone was in her pocket. She should call 911. She should explain somehow that.
What?
That a pale man with black eyes had made the lights explode with his mind. Mara sank into the nearest intact chair, staring at the shattered glass covering every surface. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Outside, lightning split the sky. For just a moment, Mara thought she saw a figure standing at the edge of the parking lot, watching the diner. Then the darkness swallowed him whole. She had no idea that in saving a stranger's life, she'd just signed away her own. The bond had already begun. Mara had exactly 4 hours of sleep before her alarm dragged her back to consciousness. Every muscle ached as she pulled on her uniform, the same one from last night, still smelling like coffee and fear. The diner looked worse in daylight. Eddie had called her at 6 a.m., screaming about the damage. She'd lied, said she had no idea what happened, that she'd been in the bathroom when it all went down. The security camera had conveniently stopped working at 12:30 a.m. Lucky for her. Unlucky for explaining things. Both officers had woken up with no memory of the stranger. They remembered a gas leak and explosion. Their report said nothing about a pale man with impossible eyes. Mara knew better than to correct them. Now, at 9 a.m., she swept broken glass while Eddie glared from behind the temporary plywood covering the windows. 3 customers sat scattered in booths, pretending not to stare at the destruction. Insurance adjusters coming at noon, Eddie said, his thick Boston accent making every word sound like an accusation. This comes out of your paycheck if they don't cover it. How is that fair? I didn't. You were the only one here. Figure it out. Mara bit back a response. She needed this job. The second interview had been canceled, apparently asking to reschedule because your workplace exploded wasn't a valid excuse.
The door chimed.
Officer Dennison walked in, and Mara's blood went cold. Coffee, he said flatly, taking a stool at the counter. She poured with shaking hands. He watched her the entire time, his eyes tracking her movements like a predator. Something about him was different, more focused.
Aware.
You sure you don't remember anything from last night? He asked. I told you. I was in the back. I heard the explosion, and when I came out, you were both unconscious. Funny thing, Dennison said slowly. I had the strangest dream, about a man who shouldn't exist, and a waitress who defended him. Mara's throat went dry. Dreams are weird like that. Yeah, Dennison took a sip of coffee, never breaking eye contact. Real weird.
The door chimed again.
Eddie appeared from the kitchen, tablet in hand. Mara, you're done. Pack your stuff. What? You're fired. I can't afford someone who attracts this kind of… Eddie gestured vaguely at the destruction. Chaos. Eddie, please, I need this job. Should have thought about that before. The temperature dropped. Mara felt it instantly. That same bone-deep cold from last night. Her breath misted in the air. Eddie stopped mid-sentence. Why is it so cold? Did the AC break too? The silverware on the nearest table began to rattle. Softly at first, then louder. Forks and knives vibrating against the laminate surface. What the hell? One of the customers whispered. Then every piece of silverware in the diner lifted into the air. Spoons, forks, knives, dozens of them floating like a swarm of metal insects. They hung suspended for 3 long heartbeats while everyone stared in frozen terror. Shadows crawled across the walls, moving against the morning light. They twisted and pooled in the corners, darker than any natural shadow should be. The wind came next. It swept through the diner despite every door and window being closed, carrying the scent of rain and something ancient, like old stone and buried earth. Dennison reached for his gun. I wouldn't, said a voice from the doorway. The stranger stood there, but he looked nothing like the terrified man from last night. He wore dark clothes that seemed expensive, a black coat over a charcoal shirt, boots that didn't make a sound on the tile floor. His hair was clean, pulled back from his pale face. And his eyes. Still gray, but now they held absolute authority. He walked in like he owned the place. The silverware fell to the floor with a tremendous clatter. The shadows retreated. The cold remained. You, Dennison breathed, his hand still on his weapon. Me, the stranger agreed. He looked at Mara. Are you harmed?
She couldn't speak.
Couldn't process that he was here, in daylight, looking like some kind of dark prince instead of a confused victim. Eddie found his voice first. Who the hell are you? How did you? Silence. The stranger's voice carried that same weight from last night. Eddie's mouth clicked shut, his eyes going wide. The stranger's attention shifted to Dennison.
Leave.
Tell your masters that Calethorn has returned. Tell them the king they imprisoned has awakened. And tell them, his voice dropped to something cold and dangerous, if they touch her again, I will remind them why they feared my name. Dennison stumbled backward, his face pale. He practically ran from the diner, leaving his coffee steaming on the counter. The remaining customers fled too, scrambling over each other to get to the door. Eddie looked between Mara and the stranger, Calethorn, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. You're fired, Stans, he finally managed, then practically sprinted to the kitchen. Silence fell over the diner. Calethorn turned to Mara, and his expression softened. I apologize for the dramatics, but I couldn't let them harm you further. Harm me? They were just… Mara stopped.
Wait.
You said Calethorn? And King? What the hell is happening? I am Calethorn, he said simply. And until last night, I was entombed for 2 centuries by those who feared my power. You saved me from execution. Mara laughed. It came out slightly hysterical. Execution? By police? Those were not true officers. They were hunters wearing stolen uniforms. The Order of Dawnbreakers. They've hunted my kind for millennia. Your kind, Mara repeated slowly. What are you? He met her eyes, unflinching. I am vampire. I am king. And because you defended me with pure intent, you triggered something that hasn't occurred in 500 years. What? An ancient spell. A bond. He took a step closer. Our lives are now connected, Mara. If I die, you die. If you die, I die anyway. That's how death works. Mara snapped, her fear converting to anger. You're telling me I'm stuck with you? Because I stopped some cops from shooting you. Not cops. Hunters. And yes, his expression was grave. I am sorry. The magic activated without my consent. but it cannot be undone. Mara grabbed the counter for support. Her entire life had just fallen apart. Fired. Linked to a vampire. Targeted by hunters. This is insane, she whispered. Yes, Calethorn agreed. But it is also real.
And they will come for you now.
For us both, he extended his hand. We must leave.
Now.
Outside, sirens began to wail. Word count. 1,000. Mara grabbed her jacket and followed Calethorn out the back door into the alley behind Eddie's diner. The morning sun felt too bright, too normal for what was happening. Dumpsters lined the narrow space, and the smell of old grease hung in the air. Wait, she said, stopping halfway down the alley. Just wait a second. Calethorn turned, his dark coat swirling around him. We don't have time. Make time. Mara's voice came out harder than she intended. You show up, blow up my workplace twice, tell me I'm magically handcuffed to a vampire, and expect me to just run?
No. Explain. Now.
The sirens were getting closer. Calethorn's jaw tightened, but he nodded. You deserve the truth. Start with why the police were really after you. They weren't police. The Order of Dawnbreakers has infiltrated human law enforcement for decades. They use it as cover. He glanced toward the street. Last night, they were transporting me to an execution site. They've been hunting what remains of my people since I was imprisoned. Imprisoned where? By who? Pain flashed across his face. By my own counsel. 200 years ago, they betrayed me, feared I was becoming too powerful, too dangerous. They used a spell to entomb me in stone, hidden beneath what is now this city. And you just woke up. Someone disturbed the seal. I don't know who or why. He stepped closer. I woke confused, weakened. The hunters found me within hours. They would have ended me last night if you hadn't. Stopped them, Mara finished. But you said something about a spell. A bond. Calethorn's expression grew serious. When you defended me, you acted with pure intent, selfless courage without expecting reward. That kind of act, performed for a vampire king, activates an ancient magic. Old magic. The kind that predates modern spells. What does it do, exactly? It binds our life forces together. He held up his hand, and Mara saw a faint mark on his palm, like a scar, but it glowed with a soft silver light. You have one too. Mara looked at her own hand. There it was. A mark she hadn't noticed before, silvery and shimmering just beneath her skin. It looked like a knot, intricate and beautiful. And terrifying. This mark, Calethorn continued, represents the bond. Our hearts beat in sync now. Our life forces are intertwined. If I die, the magic will drain your life to try to save me. You'll die within minutes. If you die. You die too, Mara whispered, staring at the mark. That's insane. There has to be a way to break it. There isn't. His voice was gentle but firm. This magic only activates once every few centuries. The last time was in 1523, when a farmer's daughter saved King Aldrich from a mob. They were bonded until her natural death 60 years later. 60 years. Mara felt dizzy. I'm supposed to be stuck with you for 60 years? Or until one of us dies, Calethorn said quietly. Which, given that hunters are now tracking both of us, may be considerably shorter. A police car screamed past the alley entrance. Calethorn moved instantly, pulling Mara deeper into the shadows behind a dumpster. His hand was cold against her arm. She could feel it now, a strange awareness of him, like a second heartbeat echoing in her chest. When he tensed, she felt the ripple of his tension. When his eyes darkened with concern, she felt the weight of that emotion. I feel you, she breathed. Your feelings. And I feel yours. Fear. Anger. Confusion. He released her arm. The bond connects more than just our lives. It connects our essences. The longer we're bonded, the stronger that connection becomes. What happens if it gets too strong? Calethorn hesitated. I don't know. The records from previous bonds are incomplete. But there are stories of bonded pairs who could share thoughts, memories. Some say their souls began to merge. That's not comforting. No, he agreed. It isn't. More sirens. Footsteps on the street. Mara heard voices, sharp, organized. Not regular cops. Hunters. They're searching in a grid pattern, Calethorn said. They'll find us in minutes. So we run. Where? I have contacts. Other vampires who survived the purge. There's a safe house. More vampires? Mara laughed bitterly.
Great. Sure.
Why not? Calethorn's expression softened. I know this is overwhelming. If I could undo it, spare you this burden, I would. You saved my life, and in return, I've endangered yours. I am truly sorry. The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard. This wasn't some monster. He was just tired,
Old.
lost in a world that had changed beyond recognition. Mara thought about her apartment, her student loans, her safe, boring life. All of it seemed distant now, like it belonged to someone else. The farmer's daughter, she said suddenly. The one bonded to King Aldrich. Did she survive?
Yes.
He protected her until she died of old age. She lived well. Then you protect me too. Mara met his gray eyes. You got me into this. You get me out alive. Deal? Something like respect crossed Calethorn's face.
Deal.
Good. Now where's this safe house? Industrial district. 3 miles east. Then let's move before. A figure appeared at the alley entrance. Not a hunter. Something else. A woman in leather, her eyes gleaming gold in the shadows. Calethorn, she purred. The lost king returns.
And with a human pet. How?
Quaint. Calethorn pushed Mara behind him. Celine. I should have known you'd be tracking me. The woman, Celine, smiled, revealing elongated fangs. The council wants you back, my king. Dead or alive. Preferably dead. She moved like lightning. Calethorn's power exploded outward, shadows rising like a wall between them and the vampire assassin. Run, he shouted at Mara. And she did. Mara ran harder than she'd ever run in her life. Her sneakers slapped against wet pavement as she burst from the alley onto the street. Behind her, she heard the crash of dumpsters, the hiss of something inhuman, and Calethorn's voice calling her name. She didn't stop. The city was waking up, cars honking, people heading to work with coffee cups and briefcases. Normal people living normal lives. None of them noticed the terrified waitress sprinting past, or the shadows that followed her like living things. Calethorn appeared beside her, so suddenly, she almost screamed. He wasn't even breathing hard. This way, he said, grabbing her hand. His skin was ice cold. He pulled her down a side street, then through a parking garage, moving with absolute certainty. Mara's lungs burned. Her legs felt like rubber. I can't, she gasped. Can't keep. You must, his voice was urgent, but not unkind. Celine won't stop. She's a tracker. One of the best. They emerged on the other side of the garage into the industrial district. Warehouses lined the street, most abandoned. Graffiti covered the walls. Broken glass glittered on the sidewalk. Where are we going? Mara managed between breaths. Old Rail Yard. 2 blocks east, Calethorn's eyes scanned the rooftops. They'll have others. The order works in teams. Great. That's great. Mara's side cramped painfully. And your vampire assassin friend. Celine is no friend. She was my council's executioner. If she's here, it means they want me dead more than they want me returned.
Why?
What did you do to them? Calethorn's expression darkened. I refused to let them slaughter innocent humans. They called it culling the herd, I called it murder.
We
disagreed. They turned down another street, this one completely deserted. Empty railroad tracks ran down the center, weeds growing between the ties. Rusted train cars sat on sidings, covered in years of grime. There, Calethorn said, pointing to a brick building with boarded windows. The entrance is. An explosion of movement from above. 3 figures dropped from the rooftop, landing in a crouch between them and the building. They wore tactical gear, crosses burned into their chest plates. The order. Target acquired, one said into a radio. His weapon looked like a gun but glowed with blue light along the barrel. King and the bonded human. Stand down, Calethorn said coldly. This doesn't concern the human. Everything about you concerns us, vampire. The lead hunter raised his weapon. And the bond makes her just as guilty. Mara felt it then, a surge through the mark on her palm. Calethorn's power rising, his anger bleeding into her through the connection. It felt like ice and electricity combined. Run when I tell you, he whispered.
What?
No, I'm not leaving you. You must.
Get to the building.
The door behind the 3rd train car. Tell them Calethorn sent you. They'll protect you. But the bond, if they kill you. They won't, his voice carried absolute certainty. Not today. The hunters fired. Blue light screamed through the air. Calethorn moved, shadows erupting around him like wings. The light hit the shadows and dissipated, absorbed into the darkness. Holy bullets won't work on a king, fools, Calethorn said, his voice reverberating with power. I am not some newborn vampire you can execute in an alley. He raised his hand, and the railroad tracks began to shake. Metal screeched as the rails twisted, rising from the ground like serpents. They wrapped around 2 of the hunters, pinning them. The 3rd hunter pulled out a different weapon, a blade that burned with white fire. Silver blessed in dawn light, the hunter said. This will work just fine. He lunged. Calethorn caught the blade with his bare hand. Smoke rose from his palm where it touched the metal, but he didn't flinch. With his other hand, he struck the hunter's chest, sending him flying backward into a train car with a sound like thunder.
Now,
Calethorn shouted. Run.
Mara ran.
She heard more fighting behind her. Crashes, the whip-crack of shadows, someone screaming. The bond pulsed to her chest, letting her feel every hit Calethorn took, every surge of power he used. It was draining him. She could feel it. Each use of his power pulled at something vital, like he was burning through reserves he didn't have. The 3rd train car loomed ahead. Mara found the door, a rusted metal panel that looked sealed shut. She pulled. Nothing. Come on, she muttered, yanking harder. Behind her, she heard footsteps. Running.
Fast.
She turned. Celine stood 20 feet away, her golden eyes gleaming. Blood, not her own, dripped from her hands. Poor little human, Celine purred. Did he really think he could protect you? Calethorn can barely protect himself. 2 centuries in stone left him weak. Broken. Stay back, Mara warned, though she had no weapon, no power, nothing. Celine laughed. Or what? You'll defend him again? That worked so well last time she stepped closer. The bond makes you interesting, though. If I kill you, he dies too. 2 birds, 1 stone. She moved in a blur. A hand shot out from behind Mara, catching Celine by the throat. The metal door had opened silently, and a massive figure stood there. Another vampire, broad-shouldered, with scars across his face. Touch the king's bonded, and you touch the king, he growled. Marcus, Celine hissed. Still playing loyal dog? Always, Marcus threw her backward with inhuman strength. Get inside, human.
Now.
Mara didn't need to be told twice. She dove through the doorway. Marcus followed, slamming the metal door shut. Heavy bolts slid into place with a sound of finality. Where's Calethorn? Marcus demanded. Fighting. 3 hunters and... The door shuttered. Someone pounding from outside. Let me in, Marcus, came Calethorn's voice, strained with exhaustion. Marcus opened the door. Calethorn stumbled inside, his coat torn, black blood seeping from wounds on his shoulder and side. The moment the door sealed, he collapsed. Mara felt it through the bond, his consciousness flickering, his strength nearly spent. No, she whispered, dropping beside him.
No, stay awake.
You said they wouldn't kill you today. They didn't, he managed, his gray eyes meeting hers. I kept my promise. Then his eyes closed, and the bond went dark. Marcus carried Calethorn's unconscious body like he weighed nothing, descending a narrow staircase that spiraled deep underground. Mara followed, her legs shaking from exhaustion and fear. The bond in her chest felt hollow, like a radio tuned to static. Is he dying? She asked. No, Marcus said without looking back. But he's close to it. Using that much power in his condition stupid. Always was stubborn. The stairs ended in a concrete corridor lit by flickering fluorescent lights. It smelled like damp earth and something metallic. Blood, Mara realized with a sick twist in her stomach. They passed through a heavy door into a larger space. Mara stopped, stunned. The safe house was huge, an old maintenance tunnel converted into a living space. Mismatched furniture filled the area. Couches, tables, cots lined against the walls. Strings of Christmas lights provided warm illumination. Maybe 20 people, no, vampires, turned to stare at them. A young woman with silver hair gasped. Marcus, is that? The king, Marcus confirmed, laying Calethorn on a worn leather couch. Get Elena.
Now.
The silver-haired vampire ran. Others crowded closer, their faces showing shock, disbelief, hope. Calethorn lives, an older man whispered. After all this time? He was entombed, Marcus said. Someone broke the seal. He's weak, unstable, and bonded. Every eye shifted to Mara. She suddenly felt very human, very breakable, surrounded by predators. Bonded. A woman with dark skin and sharp features stepped forward. To her, a human? She saved him, Marcus said. Triggered the ancient vow. Murmurs rippled through the group. Some looked amazed. Others looked angry. One vampire, a teenager with a mohawk, actually knelt. My king returns, he breathed. I never thought I'd live to see it. Don't celebrate yet, came a crisp voice. A woman pushed through the crowd, carrying a medical bag. She looked to be in her 40s, with auburn hair and intelligent green eyes.
Move.
Give me space. The vampires scattered. The woman, Elena, knelt beside Calethorn, pressing her fingers to his throat, his wrist, checking his wounds. Silver damage, energy depletion, and he's been in stone for how long? She looked at Marcus. 200 years.
Elena swore.
His body's barely functional. These wounds should have healed instantly, but his regeneration is shot. She pulled out supplies, moving with practiced efficiency. The bond's not helping either. What do you mean? Mara asked, stepping closer. Elena glanced at her, assessing. You're the bonded human. You can feel him through the connection, yes?
Yes. But it's
empty right now. Dark. That's because he's unconscious. But when he wakes, the bond will drain both of you. It needs stability to function properly. Right now, it's wild, uncontrolled magic feeding off both your life forces. Mara's stomach dropped. So it's killing us.
Slowly, yes.
Unless he can fully awaken his power and stabilize the bond, Elena cleaned Calethorn's wounds, her hands steady. But doing that requires enormous energy. Energy he doesn't have. So what do we do? Keep him alive. Let him rest. Hope Elena met Mara's eyes. And pray the order doesn't find this place before he recovers. A vampire near the door suddenly tensed. Someone's coming down. Everyone moved at once. Weapons appeared, stakes, blades, even a crossbow. Marcus positioned himself in front of Calethorn and Mara. The door opened. The silver-haired vampire stumbled in, followed by two others carrying an unconscious man. We found him outside, she panted. Human. He's hurt bad. They laid him on a table. Mara recognized him immediately, one of the hunters from the rail yard. His tactical gear was torn, blood soaking through his shirt. Why did you bring him here? Marcus growled. He was dying, the silver-haired vampire said. I couldn't just. He's a hunter, Lily. He'd kill every one of us without blinking. Then we're no better than them, Lily shot back. Elena was already checking the hunter's pulse. He's lost a lot of blood. Punctured lung, maybe worse. Let him die, someone said from the crowd. No, the voice was weak, but commanding. Calethorn's eyes were open, though he looked half dead himself. Save him. My king, Marcus protested. He came here to kill you, and I defeated him. Now we show mercy, Calethorn's gray eyes fixed on the hunter. That's what separates us from monsters. Elena looked between them, then sighed.
Fine.
But I'm treating the king first. She worked on Calethorn's wounds while the hunter lay bleeding. The vampires watched in tense silence. Mara stood close to Calethorn, and when his hand reached for hers, she took it. The bond flared to life. Warmth rushed through her, his consciousness returning, his presence filling that hollow space in her chest. But underneath it, she felt his pain, his weakness, his fear that he wasn't strong enough to protect anyone anymore. I'm sorry, he whispered, for all of this. Stop apologizing and focus on healing, Mara said, squeezing his hand. A faint smile touched his lips. Then his eyes rolled back, and he was unconscious again. Elena finished bandaging him and moved to the hunter. His name's printed on his vest. Agent Walker. I don't care what his name is, Marcus muttered. But Mara did. She moved closer, watching Elena work. Walker couldn't have been older than 30. Young. Someone's son. Maybe someone's husband. Will he live? She asked. If I can stop the bleeding, maybe. Elena worked quickly, her vampire precision making human doctors look clumsy by comparison. The bond pulsed. Mara looked back at Calethorn. He was breathing but barely. His skin looked gray, his cheeks hollow. He's fading, she realized aloud. The bond is taking too much from him. From both of you, Elena corrected. You look exhausted too. When did you last eat? Sleep. Mara couldn't remember. The last day had been a blur of terror and impossibility. Lily, Elena called. Get the human food. Real food, not blood. Lily nodded and disappeared into a side room. Marcus crouched beside Mara. You should rest. The king needs you strong. I can't rest. Every time I close my eyes, I feel. Mara touched her chest. Him. Slipping away. Then we make sure he doesn't slip far. Marcus's scarred face was surprisingly gentle. He survived worse than this. 2 centuries in stone didn't kill him. This won't either. But Mara wasn't so sure. Through the bond, she felt Calethorn's life force, a candle flame in a storm, flickering, barely holding on. And somewhere above them, the hunters were still searching. Night fell above ground, though in the safe house, time felt meaningless. Mara sat in a corner on a borrowed cot, forcing herself to eat the sandwich Lily had made. It tasted like cardboard, but Elena had been firm. Eat, or you'll be useless to him. Calethorn hadn't moved in hours. He lay on the couch, his chest rising and falling so slightly that Mara kept checking the bond to make sure he was still alive. The connection pulsed weakly, like a distant heartbeat. Most of the vampires had dispersed to other areas of the safe house. Marcus stood guard at the door, crossbow in hand. Elena tended to Agent Walker, who was still unconscious but stable. Mara was alone with her thoughts for the first time all day. She should have been terrified. Should have been planning her escape, finding a way back to her normal life. Instead, she kept watching Calethorn's pale face, feeling the echo of his pain through the bond. You're staring, Lily said softly, appearing beside her with a cup of tea. It's okay. We all did that when Marcus first brought us here. Couldn't believe we'd found safety. Mara took the tea. How long have you been here? 3 years. The order killed my family when I was 17. Marcus found me before they could finish the job. Lily sat cross-legged on the floor. The king was already gone by then, entombed. But Marcus told us stories. Said Calethorn was different from the old vampires. Said he cared about humans, tried to make peace. What happened? The council happened. They were old, traditional. Believed humans were food, nothing more. When Calethorn tried to change things, they turned on him. Lily's silver hair caught the light. Marcus said the betrayal broke something in him. But he never stopped fighting for what was right. Mara looked at the sleeping vampire king. He ordered you to save that hunter. The one who tried to kill him. I know, Lily smiled. That's how I knew the stories were true. He's exactly who Marcus said he was. A sound broke the quiet, a low, anguished moan. Calethorn's body tensed, his head turning sharply. His eyes moved rapidly beneath closed lids. He's dreaming, Lily whispered, backing away. Vampire dreams are intense. You should. Calethorn's back arched. His mouth opened in a silent scream. The shadows in the room thickened, responding to his distress. Mara felt it through the bond, a flood of images, emotions, memories crashing through her mind. A grand hall with stone pillars. Calethorn standing before a council of ancient vampires, their eyes cold and judgmental. You've gone soft, one said. Protecting humans weakens us. Protecting humans makes us more than monsters, Calethorn replied. Then you're no longer fit to lead. The betrayal came fast. Magic binding his limbs, dragging him down. Stone closing around him, suffocating. Eternal darkness. Mara gasped, the memory breaking. Calethorn thrashed on the couch, his hands clawing at invisible bonds. Wake him up, Marcus shouted, rushing over. If he loses control in his sleep, he could bring the whole tunnel down. Mara moved without thinking. She grabbed Calethorn's hand, the one with the glowing mark, and pressed her palm to his. The bond flared white-hot. More memories flooded through. 200 years of darkness. Consciousness fading in and out. Hearing voices above, hunters, humans, vampires, but unable to move, unable to speak. The slow erosion of sanity. The fear that he'd wake to find everyone he'd cared about dead and gone. Then light. The seal breaking. Confusion. Where was he? When was he? Hunters dragging him, speaking words he barely understood. About to kill him, about to end it all. And then her, a tired waitress with kind eyes, stepping between him and death. The memory shifted. She saw herself through Calethorn's eyes, saw how he'd perceived her in that moment. Not just brave, radiant, like the first dawn after centuries of night. Calethorn's eyes snapped open. He sat up violently, gasping. His gray eyes were wide, disoriented, still caught between past and present. You're safe, Mara said quietly, still holding his hand. You're in the safe house. You're not in the stone anymore. His eyes found hers. Recognition flooded through the bond, followed by relief, so powerful it made her chest ache. I dreamed, he said hoarsely. I was back there.
Trapped.
Alone. You're not alone, the words came out before she could stop them. Calethorn stared at their joined hands, at the matching marks glowing softly. I never wanted this for you. This burden. This danger. I know. I don't fear death, Mara. I've lived long enough. But I fear, his voice cracked. I fear waking each day to find my people extinct. To find that everything I fought for was for nothing. The vulnerability in his voice startled her. This wasn't a king or a monster. This was just someone tired and lost, trying to find meaning in a world that had left him behind. Your people aren't extinct, Mara said. They're right here. Lily, Marcus, Elena, they've survived because of what you taught them. Because you showed them a different way. A way that got me imprisoned. A way that made them loyal enough to wait 200 years for your return. Mara squeezed his hand. That has to count for something. Calethorn was quiet for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled, small, genuine, sad. You're remarkable. Do you know that? I'm a waitress with student debt who got fired yesterday. You're the human who saw a stranger in danger and didn't look away. Who defended a monster without knowing what he was. His thumb traced the mark on her palm. The bond chose well. I thought the bond was automatic. Not a choice. It activates automatically. But it only forms between souls that resonate. To complement each other, he looked at her intently. We're connected now, Mara. Not just by magic, but by something deeper. I feel your courage, your compassion. And you feel your fear, your guilt, your loneliness. Mara held his gaze. I feel all of it. The moment stretched between them, heavy with understanding. Marcus cleared his throat. My king, you should rest more. You're still weak. No, Calethorn stood, though he swayed slightly. If the Order knows I've returned, they'll mobilize. We can't stay here long. They'll find us eventually. Where can we go? Elena asked. Calethorn's expression hardened. There's only one place they won't expect. One place that might have answers about stabilizing the bond. Where? Mara asked. He met her eyes, and she felt his dread through the connection. The cathedral. The old vampire court. His voice went cold. I need to face the ones who betrayed me. They left the safe house an hour before dawn, moving through forgotten subway tunnels that snaked beneath the city. Marcus led the way with a flashlight, followed by Calethorn and Mara. 5 other vampires came as guards, Lily, Elena, and 3 others whose names Mara hadn't learned yet. Agent Walker remained behind, still unconscious but stable. The tunnels were cold and damp, ancient graffiti covering the walls. Rats scattered at their approach. Water dripped from rusted pipes overhead. These tunnels haven't been used in 40 years, Marcus explained quietly. They connect to the old cathedral's crypt. Secret entrance the council used during the purge. How far? Calethorn asked. He looked stronger than before, but Mara could feel his exhaustion through the bond. 2 miles. Maybe 30 minutes if we... An explosion rocked the tunnel. The blast came from behind them, a fireball that lit up the darkness like a miniature sun. The shockwave threw Mara forward. She hit the ground hard, ears ringing. Ambush! Marcus roared. Figures emerged from the flames, a dozen hunters in tactical gear, weapons raised. Their leader wore a white coat over body armor, a silver cross burned into his forehead. Calethorn, he called out, his voice amplified somehow. By order of the Dawnbreakers, you are sentenced to final death. How did they find us? Lily gasped. The hunter, Elena said grimly. Walker. He must have had a tracker. I told you not to bring him, Marcus snarled. The hunters opened fire. Not with bullets, with light. Brilliant, searing beams that made the vampires scream and recoil. Holy fire, Mara realized. Weaponized sunlight. Run, Calethorn commanded. Get to the cathedral. We're not leaving you, Marcus shouted back. That's an order. Calethorn raised his hands, and shadows erupted from every corner of the tunnel. They formed a wall between the vampires and the hunters, absorbing the holy fire. Go!
Now!
Marcus grabbed Mara's arm, pulling her forward. The other vampires ran ahead, moving with inhuman speed through the darkness. Behind them, the battle erupted in full force. Mara looked back in time to see Calethorn standing alone against 12 hunters. His eyes had gone completely black. Shadows moved around him like living creatures, serpents of darkness striking at the hunters, disarming them, throwing them against walls. But he was weakening. She felt it through the bond, each use of power pulling at his depleted reserves. We have to help him, she shouted at Marcus. He ordered us to. Another explosion. This one ahead of them. The tunnel collapsed, rubble blocking their path. Through the dust, more hunters appeared, cutting off their escape. Trap, Marcus growled. They herded us here. The hunters advanced from both sides. The vampires clustered together, backs to each other, weapons raised. Surrender the king's bonded, one hunter demanded. Give us the human, and the rest of you walk away. Never, Lily spat. Then die with her. They attacked. Chaos erupted. Marcus swung his crossbow like a club, taking down 2 hunters. Elena moved with surgical precision, disarming one and using his own weapon against him. Lily's speed was dizzying, She was a silver blur, striking and retreating before anyone could track her. But there were too many hunters. Too many weapons. A hunter grabbed Mara from behind, pressing a blade to her throat. I have her. Pain exploded through the bond, not hers. Cale Thorne's. She felt him in the distance, felt his anguish at sensing her danger, felt his power surge violently in response. The tunnel shook, not from explosions, from something deeper. Shadows poured through the collapsed rubble like a flood, tearing through stone and metal. They wrapped around hunters, lifting them off their feet, slamming them into walls with bone-crushing force. Cale Thorne emerged from the darkness, and Mara barely recognized him. His eyes burned with black fire. Shadows formed armor around him, solid, real, moving like living darkness. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of centuries. You dare threaten what is mine? The hunter holding Mara released her immediately, stumbling backward. Cale Thorne moved faster than thought. He was suddenly there, his hand around the hunter's throat. Never. Again. He threw the hunter 50 feet down the tunnel. The remaining hunters hesitated, fear finally breaking through their training. Fall back, their leader ordered. Fall back and regroup. But Cale Thorne wasn't done. The shadows spread like wings behind him, blocking both exits. You came to kill me? You came to take her? His power made the air vibrate. Then face the consequences. The tunnel began to collapse.
No.
Mara shouted. Cale Thorne, stop. You'll kill everyone, including us. He turned to her, and for a moment, she saw only a monster, something ancient and terrifying, beyond human understanding. Then recognition flickered in his eyes. The black fire dimmed. Mara, he whispered. The shadows retracted violently. The tunnel stabilized, but the strain was too much. Cale Thorne collapsed to his knees. The bond went wild, pain searing through Mara's chest like she'd been stabbed. She gasped, dropping beside him. What's happening? She choked out. Elena was there instantly, checking them both. The bond is destabilizing. His power surge damaged it. It's trying to drain both of you to compensate. Mara's vision blurred. She could feel her life force being pulled away, flowing into the bond, trying desperately to stabilize the magic. Cale Thorne grabbed her hand, his gray eyes wide with horror. I'm killing you. I can't control it. Then stop fighting, Mara said through gritted teeth. Let the bond balance itself. Trust it. If I do that, it might drain me completely. I might. Then we die together, she squeezed his hand. I'm not letting go. 4-3 heartbeats. The world held its breath. Then warmth flooded through the bond. Not draining.
Sharing.
Her life force and his flowing back and forth, finding equilibrium. The pain faded. The bond steadied, stronger than before. Cale Thorne's eyes cleared. You saved me. Again. We saved each other, Mara corrected. Marcus helped them both stand. The hunters retreated, but they'll be back with reinforcements. We need to move.
Now.
They ran through the tunnels, leaving unconscious hunters and rubble behind. Above them, dawn was breaking. They didn't make it to the cathedral. Dawn caught them halfway, and Cale Thorne's strength gave out completely. Marcus guided them up through a maintenance shaft into an abandoned building, an old flower shop with boarded windows and a greenhouse on the roof. This will have to do, Marcus said, checking the perimeter. The glass is tinted. Should protect him from direct sunlight. The greenhouse was overgrown with dead plants and broken pots. But it was warm and, more importantly, hidden. The vampires secured the entrances while Elena helped Cale Thorne up the stairs. He could barely walk. The power he'd used in the tunnel had drained him to almost nothing. Mara felt it through the bond, his life force flickering like a dying bulb. Everyone else downstairs, Marcus ordered. Give them privacy. The bond needs to stabilize. The vampires left without argument. Even Marcus disappeared, leaving Mara and Cale Thorne alone in the greenhouse as morning light filtered through the tinted glass. Calethorn collapsed onto an old bench, his head falling back against the weathered wood. His shirt was torn, revealing the silver scars across his chest, wounds from the blessed blade that still hadn't healed. "Let me see," Mara said, kneeling beside him. "Ai fine." "You're not. Stop being stubborn." She carefully lifted the torn fabric. The wounds were angry and red, not healing like they should. "Why aren't these closing?" "Silver blessed at dawn," Calethorn said wearily. "It's designed to prevent regeneration. They'll heal eventually, but slowly." Mara found a relatively clean cloth and water in Elena's abandoned medical bag. She cleaned the wounds as gently as she could. Calethorn tensed, but didn't pull away. "You nearly killed yourself back there," she said quietly. "You lost control." I know his voice was heavy with shame. "When I felt you in danger, when I felt that blade at your throat, something in me broke. I couldn't think. I could only react." "The bond makes you feel my fear that strongly?" "It's not just fear. It's everything." He opened his eyes, looking at her. "Your pain is my pain. Your joy is my joy. When you're threatened, every instinct screams at me to protect you, no matter the cost." Mara's hands paused. "That's terrifying." "Yes," he reached up, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. His touch was gentle despite his cold skin, but also beautiful in its way. "I haven't felt truly connected to anyone in centuries." The loneliness was, he stopped, swallowing hard. It was unbearable. She finished cleaning the wounds and sat back on her heels. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "In the tunnel, when you stabilized the bond by letting our life forces balance, what did you feel?" Calethorn was quiet for a moment. "Everything. Your memories, your emotions, pieces of who you are. I felt your childhood, your dreams of becoming a nurse, your fear that you'd never be enough." His gray eyes held hers. "And I felt your courage. That core of strength that makes you step into danger for strangers. It's remarkable, Mara. You're remarkable." "I'm scared," she admitted. "All the time. I'm just good at hiding it. That's what courage is. Being terrified and acting anyway." He smiled faintly. "You've saved my life twice now. Once from execution, once from myself. We saved each other." "Yes." His expression grew serious. "But there's something you need to know. About what happens if I fully awaken my power." Elena mentioned it could stabilize the bond. "It could. Or it could make everything worse." Calethorn looked at his scarred hand. "When a vampire king fully awakens, their power becomes immense. Overwhelming. But the bond would intensify proportionally. We wouldn't just feel each other's emotions anymore. What would happen? Our souls would begin to merge. Memories would blend. You'd carry pieces of my 800 years, and I'd carry pieces of your humanity. Eventually," he hesitated. "Eventually, we might not be able to tell where one ends and the other begins." Mara's breath caught. "That's what the Elder warned about. In your brief. You read ahead?" Despite everything, he almost smiled. "I'm trying to understand what we're facing." She moved closer, sitting beside him on the bench. "Is there any way to avoid it? To keep the bond stable without you fully awakening?" "I don't know. The records are incomplete." His voice dropped. "But I fear that to survive what's coming, the Order, the Council, all of it, I'll need that power. And using it will risk everything." Outside, a bird sang. The morning light grew brighter, painting the greenhouse in shades of gold and amber. "What if I don't mind?" Mara said suddenly. Calethorn looked at her sharply. "What? What if I don't mind carrying pieces of you? Your memories, your experiences?" She met his eyes. "You've lived for centuries. You've seen things I can't imagine. Maybe sharing that isn't a curse. Maybe it's—" She stopped, unsure how to finish. Calethorn reached for her hand, threading his cold fingers through hers. "You're unlike anyone I've ever known, human or vampire." "Is that good or bad?" "Good," he said softly. "Very, very good." A beam of sunlight broke through a crack in the tinted glass, striking Calethorn's shoulder. He hissed in pain, smoke rising from his skin. Mara reacted instantly. She moved between him and the light, using her body to shield him. The sunlight was hot on her back, but she didn't move. Mara, stop, Calethorn protested. You'll get burned. So will you? Worse, she stayed put, gritting her teeth against the heat. He stared at her, something like wonder crossing his face. Then he pulled her away from the light, wrapping his coat around both of them, creating shadow. They sat huddled together in the dim corner of the greenhouse, her warmth against his cold, both breathing hard. You can't keep saving me, Calethorn whispered against her hair. Watch me, Mara whispered back. Through the bond, she felt his emotions: gratitude, awe, fear, and something deeper. Something that made her heart race and her breath catch. Something that felt dangerously like. Rest, he said quietly. We're safe for now. Sleep. Mara's exhaustion finally caught up with her. She leaned against his shoulder, her eyes closing. The last thing she felt before sleep took her was Calethorn's hand holding hers, and through the bond, a single word echoed. They reached the cathedral at nightfall. It loomed against the dark sky, a Gothic structure with crumbling stone walls and stained glass windows that had been shattered decades ago. The city had abandoned it, but Mara could feel something alive inside. Something watching. This place feels wrong, she whispered to Calethorn. It is wrong, he replied, his gray eyes scanning the building. This is where they entombed me, where my council decided I was too dangerous to live. Marcus and the others fanned out, securing the perimeter. Elena stayed close to Mara, her hand on a concealed blade. Are you sure about this, my king? Marcus asked. The council could. I know what they could do. Calethorn cut him off. But if anyone has knowledge about stabilizing an ancient bond, it's them. We have no choice. They entered through the main doors. The interior was vast and empty, rows of broken pews scattered across a stone floor. Moonlight filtered through the ruined windows, casting eerie shadows. A voice echoed from the darkness. Calethorn, the dead king walks. Figures emerged from the shadows, 7 vampires, all ancient, all radiating power. They wore fine clothes, expensive and tailored, looking absurdly formal in the ruined cathedral. The speaker stepped forward, a woman with jet black hair and eyes like chips of ice. She looked 30, but felt older than stone. Cassandra, Calethorn said coldly. Still leading the council, I see. Someone had to after your departure. Cassandra's smile was razor-sharp. We heard you'd awakened. Heard you'd bonded with a human. Her eyes slid to Mara with obvious disdain. How quaint. I need information, Calethorn said, his voice hard. The bond is unstable. You have records, knowledge from previous bonds. I need access. And why would we help you? Another council member spoke, a man with silver hair and a cruel mouth. You defied us, Calethorn. You put human lives above vampire supremacy. You nearly destroyed everything our kind built. I tried to save us from becoming the monsters humans feared, Calethorn shot back. Slaughtering innocents wasn't strength. It was cowardice. Enough, Cassandra raised her hand. We didn't summon you here to debate philosophy. She looked at the other council members. Should we tell him? Mara's stomach dropped. Something was very wrong. Tell me what? Calethorn demanded. Cassandra's smile widened. That we're the ones who broke your seal. Silence fell like a blade. Calethorn went completely still. What? We released you, dear king. Hired a human occultist to crack the spell. Took months of preparation, but we managed it. Cassandra circled him slowly, like a predator. Why do you think the hunters found you so quickly? We told them where you'd be. You set me up, Calethorn breathed. Why? Insurance. Cassandra stopped in front of him. You see, in the 200 years you were gone, the Order grew powerful. Too powerful. They've hunted us to near extinction. We needed something to distract them. Someone they'd chase with everything they had. You used me as bait, Calethorn said flatly. Exactly. And it worked beautifully. The Order mobilized dozens of teams to hunt you. While they're focused on the returned king, we've been rebuilding our strength, planning our counterattack. She gestured around. This cathedral? It's now our fortress. Warded, protected, impenetrable. Marcus moved forward, crossbow raised. You sacrificed your own king. He was never our king, the silver-haired vampire spat. He was a traitor who cared more about humans than his own kind. Mara felt rage building through the bond, Calethorn's fury, cold and dark and absolute. And the bond? He asked quietly. Dangerously. Did you plan that too? Oh no, that was unexpected luck, Cassandra said cheerfully. A bonded king is even better bait. The Order will never stop hunting you now, not with a human linked to your life. They'll throw everything they have at you, she paused. Which means they'll never see us coming. You're using us to win a war, Mara said, her voice shaking with anger. Smart girl, Cassandra looked at her properly for the first time. Don't worry, darling. When the Order finally kills you both, and they will, we'll make sure your sacrifice meant something. I'll die before I let you. Calethorn started. You'll die regardless, Cassandra's expression turned cold. But we can't have you running around, potentially revealing our plan. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to kill your little human right now. The bond will take you with her. 2 birds, 1 stone.
Quick.
Merciful, even. The council members moved as one, surrounding them. Wait, Elena said quickly. You need the bond. If you kill them, the Order will know something's wrong. They'll investigate. They'll find you. Cassandra paused. Go on.
Keep them alive.
Keep them running. The longer the chase continues, the better your plan works. Elena's voice was desperate, improvising. Dead, they're useless. Alive, they're the perfect distraction. The council members exchanged glances. She has a point, the silver-haired vampire admitted. Cassandra considered, then smiled.
Fine.
You can leave. Run. Hide. Let the Order chase you across the country. Die slowly instead of quickly. She leaned close to Calethorn. But know this. We won't help you stabilize the bond. We won't give you the knowledge you seek. You'll deteriorate. The bond will consume you both, and the Order will eventually find your corpses. Either way, you lose. Calethorn's eyes went black. Shadows erupted around him, violent, furious. You dare. I dare, Cassandra didn't flinch. Because you're weak, Calethorn. 2 centuries in stone broke you. And even at full power, you couldn't defeat all 7 of us. The shadows expanded, filling the cathedral. The temperature dropped to freezing. Mara could feel Calethorn's rage through the bond. It was overwhelming, terrifying, barely controlled. Calethorn, she said, grabbing his arm. Don't. This is what they want. They want you to waste your power fighting them. His black eyes found hers. For a moment, she saw nothing human in them, nothing rational. Then, slowly, the darkness receded. The shadows pulled back. You're right, he said quietly. Then he looked at Cassandra. I won't fight you. Not today. But remember this moment, Cassandra. Remember that I showed mercy. Mercy is weakness, she replied. No, Calethorn's voice carried absolute certainty. It's what separates us from monsters. You'll understand that someday. When you need help, and there's no one left who remembers compassion. He turned, taking Mara's hand. We're leaving. The council didn't stop them. They simply watched, smiling, as Calethorn led his group toward the exit. At the doorway, Cassandra called out, Enjoy the hunt, fallen king. It's all you have left. Outside, Mara finally breathed. That was a complete disaster, Marcus finished grimly. We learned nothing except that we're all being used. No, Calethorn said. His voice was strained but determined. We learned something important.
What?
Lily asked. He looked at Mara, and through the bond, she felt his resolve crystallizing into something hard and unbreakable. We learned that we're truly alone now. The council won't help. The Order wants us dead. We have no allies, No sanctuary, nowhere safe. He squeezed her hand. Which means we have nothing left to lose. They were halfway across the cathedral grounds when the voice called out from the shadows. Wait. Everyone turned. An elderly vampire emerged from behind a crumbling monument, ancient even by vampire standards, his skin like parchment, his movements slow and painful. He wore robes that might have been elegant centuries ago, but were now little more than rags. Elder Thomas, Marcus breathed, lowering his weapon. I thought you were dead. Soon, the old vampire said, his voice like dry leaves. Very soon. But not yet, his milky eyes fixed on Calethorn. My king, I must speak with you before I pass. Cassandra's voice rang out from the cathedral entrance. Thomas, get back inside. You're forbidden from interfering.
I'm dying, Cassandra.
What more can you do to me? Thomas smiled, revealing broken fangs. Let an old vampire spend his final moments as he chooses. Cassandra's face twisted with fury, but she didn't pursue them. The council remained at the doorway, watching. Thomas gestured weakly toward a small stone chapel separate from the main cathedral. Inside.
Quickly.
I don't have much time. They followed him into the chapel. It was barely more than 4 walls and a roof, but it felt safer somehow. Sacred, in a way the main cathedral hadn't. Thomas collapsed onto a stone bench, his breathing labored. Elena moved to help him, but he waved her off. Save your strength, healer. My death was decided long ago. He looked at Calethorn with eyes that had seen centuries pass. I was there, you know. The night they entombed you. I voted against it. I remember, Calethorn said softly. You were the only one. That lot of good it did. Thomas coughed, a wet, rattling sound. They poisoned me afterward. Slow-acting, untraceable. I've been dying for 200 years, trapped in that cursed cathedral, watching them corrupt everything you built. Why call me back now? Calethorn knelt beside him. If you knew what they planned. I didn't know they'd release you until it was done. By then, I was too weak to warn you. Thomas reached out with a trembling hand, touching the mark on Calethorn's palm. But this changes everything. The bond. Mara asked, stepping closer. Thomas's eyes shifted to her, and something like wonder crossed his face. The ancient vow. I never thought I'd see one activated in my lifetime. He gestured for her to come closer. Give me your hand, child. Mara hesitated, then extended her hand. Thomas took it gently, examining the silver mark on her palm. Extraordinary, he whispered. The magic is pure. Uncorrupted, he looked between them. Do you know what this bond truly is? A curse, Calethorn said bitterly. One that will kill us both if we can't stabilize it. No, Thomas's voice strengthened with urgency. That's what they want you to believe. That's the lie the council has spread for centuries. He gripped Mara's hand tighter. The bond is not a curse. It never was. Then what is it? Mara asked. A king's vow. The most sacred promise a vampire ruler can make. Thomas looked at Calethorn. It only activates when a mortal acts with extraordinary bravery, selfless courage, without thought of reward. When that happens, if the vampire in question is a true king, the ancient magic recognizes it. It creates a bond. But why? Lily asked from the doorway. What's the purpose? Balance, Thomas said simply. Vampire kings are powerful. Dangerously so. They can live for millennia, accumulate power that could destroy nations. The bond exists to anchor them, to tie them to humanity, to mortality, to compassion. He smiled at Mara. You're not his weakness, child. You're his conscience, his connection to what matters. Calethorn stared at the old vampire. The council said if I awaken my full power, our souls might merge. That we'd lose ourselves. More lies. Thomas coughed again, harder this time. Black blood appeared at the corner of his mouth. The merge isn't a loss of self. It's an exchange. You give each other pieces of your souls. He gains your humanity, your empathy, your mortal perspective. You gain his strength, his knowledge, his power. That sounds dangerous, Mara said. It is. But not the way they told you. Thomas's breathing grew more labored. The danger isn't losing yourselves. It's becoming more than you were. More powerful. More aware. More complete. He looked at Calethorn intensely. That's why the council fears bonded kings. Because they can't be controlled. Can't be corrupted. The human bond keeps them true. If that's true, Marcus said slowly, then why do they want to kill them? Because Calethorn, fully bonded and awakened, would be unstoppable. He could challenge the council. Destroy them if he chose, Thomas smiled grimly. They released him planning for the Order to do their dirty work. But if the bond stabilizes before that happens, we become a threat they can't eliminate, Calethorn finished. Exactly, Thomas's eyes were dimming. Listen carefully. I don't have long. To stabilize the bond, you must complete the vow.
How?
Mara asked desperately. The same way it began, with an act of pure intent. But this time, it must be mutual. Thomas looked at Calethorn. She saved you, without thought of reward. Now you must choose to save each other. Willingly. Knowingly. With full acceptance of what it means. What does it mean? Calethorn asked. That you'll be bound forever. That her lifespan will extend to match yours. She'll age slower, live longer. That you'll share everything. Thoughts, feelings, memories, power. Thomas's voice dropped to a whisper. That you'll never be alone again. Either of you. Mara's heart pounded. Forever? Until one of you chooses to break it. And that choice would kill you both, Thomas smiled sadly. It's not a bond to enter lightly. But it's also not a curse. It's a gift. A terrible, beautiful gift. His body began to fade, turning translucent. No, Elena said, rushing forward. Elder, please. My time is done. Thomas looked at Calethorn one last time. The council will come for you at your weakest moment. They'll try to kill the human before you can complete the vow. You must reach a place of power, somewhere the magic is strong, where you can defend yourselves. Where? Calethorn demanded. Thomas's form flickered. Where it all began. The place she first saved you. His voice was barely audible now. Return to the diner. Complete the vow. Save each other. Elder. But Thomas was gone. His body dissolved into silver mist, scattering on a wind that came from nowhere. Silence filled the chapel. Mara looked at Calethorn, her mind reeling. The diner? We're supposed to go back there? It's where the bond activated, Calethorn said slowly. Where the magic first recognized you. If Thomas is right, that place will amplify the vow. But the Order will be watching it, Marcus protested. It's a trap. Everything is a trap now. Calethorn stood, his expression hardening with resolve. But if we want to survive, if we want to stabilize the bond and become what Thomas said we could be, we have to go back, Mara finished. Through the bond, she felt his determination, his fear, and underneath it all, his hope. Then we go back, she said firmly. And we finish this. Eddie's roadside diner looked exactly as Mara had left it. Broken windows covered with plywood, yellow police tape fluttering in the wind. The parking lot was empty except for one vehicle, a white van with tinted windows. They're here, Marcus said grimly. The Order. I know. Calethorn's eyes scanned the building. Through the bond, Mara felt his awareness extending outward, sensing life forces inside. 12 hunters.
Plus otages.
Hostages. Mara's stomach dropped. Who? Your former coworkers. Eddie. 3 others. His expression darkened. They're using them as bait. Lily cursed. They knew you'd come back here. They've been waiting. Of course they have. Calethorn looked at his small group. Marcus, Elena, Lily, and 2 other vampires. This is it. The Order's final move. They'll throw everything they have at us. Then we fight, Marcus said, loading his crossbow. No, Calethorn shook his head. You get the hostages out. All of you. That's your only mission. My king, we can't leave you. That's an order, Marcus. Calethorn's voice carried absolute authority. I won't risk anyone else. This ends tonight, one way or another. He looked at Mara. Ready. She wasn't. Her hands were shaking. Her heart hammered against her ribs. But she nodded anyway. They approached the diner together, walking straight through the front door. The interior had been transformed. All the furniture was pushed against the walls. A circle was drawn on the floor in what looked like salt mixed with silver dust. Eddie and 3 other people Mara recognized, Jenny the morning waitress, Carlos the cook, and a truck driver named Pete, were tied up in the corner, terrified but alive. The hunters stood around the circle, weapons drawn. Their leader stepped forward, the man with the white coat and silver cross burned into his forehead. "Cale Thorne," he said. "Welcome home." "Commander Hayes," Cale Thorne replied coldly. "Still hiding behind innocence, I see. Just insurance. To make sure you cooperate." Hayes gestured to the circle. "Step inside. Both of you. Nice and slow. And if we refuse..." Hayes raised his hand. Another hunter pressed a gun to Eddie's head. "Then your human friend watches her former boss die. Then the others. 1 by 1 inch." Mara's breath caught. "Don't hurt them. Please. They have nothing to do with this. They're leverage." "That's enough," Hayes smiled coldly. "Now get in the circle." Cale Thorne and Mara stepped into the silver circle together. The moment they crossed the boundary, Mara felt it, the magic activating, pressing down on them like a weight. "Binding circle," Cale Thorne said quietly. "Designed to contain vampire power." "Correct," Hayes confirmed. "Blessed by 12 priests, reinforced with elder blood. Nothing supernatural leaves the circle." He pulled out a long silver blade. "Which makes this execution nice and simple. You're going to kill us in front of witnesses?" Mara demanded. "Who'll testify?" Hayes looked at the hostages. "They'll be too traumatized to remember clearly." Shock does that. He stepped to the edge of the circle. "Any last words, Vampire King?" Cale Thorne looked at Mara. Through the bond, she felt his love, his regret, his determination. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "For all of it. You deserved better than this." "Stop apologizing," Mara said, taking his hand. "You gave me purpose. Adventure. You made me brave. You were always brave. Then let's be brave together." She squeezed his hand. "One last time." Cale Thorne's eyes widened. "Mara, what are you?" "I accept," she said clearly, loudly. "I accept the bond. I choose this. I choose you, willingly, forever." The mark on her palm blazed with light. Hayes lunged forward with the blade. "No." Too late. Cale Thorne caught Mara's other hand, pulling her close. "And I choose you. I give you my power, my memories, my immortal soul. I am yours as you are mine. Let the ancient vow be complete." The marks on both their palms exploded with silver light, so bright everyone in the diner screamed and covered their eyes. The bond snapped into place, fully, perfectly, completely. Mara gasped as power rushed through her. Centuries of memories flooded her mind. Cale Thorne's life, his loves, his losses, his endless years of existence. She saw his world through ancient eyes, felt his vampire strength coursing through her veins. And he saw her life. 28 years of struggle and hope, of nursing school dreams and waitress reality, of student debt and small kindnesses. He felt her humanity, her warmth, her unbreakable spirit. They merged, not losing themselves, but becoming more. When the light faded, everything had changed. Cale Thorne stood taller, his power fully awakened. His eyes blazed with silver fire. Shadows moved around him like living armor, but they were different now, warmer somehow, touched by humanity. And Mara could see in the dark, could hear heartbeats 3 rooms away, could feel the strength in her limbs that shouldn't be there. "What did you do?" Hayes whispered in horror. Cale Thorne smiled. "It wasn't cruel, just certain. I became what I was always meant to be, a bonded king." He raised his hand, and the binding circle shattered like glass. Power exploded outward. The hunters were thrown backward, their weapons clattering uselessly to the floor. The diner shook, windows shattering, the air itself vibrating with supernatural energy. Marcus and the others burst in, cutting the hostages free, ushering them toward the exit. Hayes scrambled for his blade, but Calethorn was there, moving faster than thought. He caught Hayes's wrist, stopping the blade inches from Mara's throat. "You lose," Calethorn said quietly. "Kill me then," Hayes spat. "Prove you're the monster we always said you were." Calethorn looked at Mara. She felt his question through the bond, felt him waiting for her answer. She shook her head. "Mercy. Mercy," Calethorn agreed. He released Hayes, letting him fall. "Tell your order this. The hunt is over. Come for us again, and I won't be so kind." Hayes stared up at them, at the bonded king and his human partner, both radiating power that made the air shimmer. "This isn't over," he said. "Yes," Mara said softly, feeling Calethorn's certainty flowing through her. "It is." The hunters fled. All of them, scrambling out doors and windows, desperate to escape. The hostages were gone, safe with Marcus and the others. The diner fell silent. Calethorn and Mara stood alone in the ruins, hands still clasped, the bond between them blazing like a star. "How do you feel?" he asked. Mara searched herself, found his memories nestled beside hers, his strength flowing through her veins, his immortal patience settling into her bones. "Complete," she whispered. "I feel complete." "As do I," he pulled her close. "Thank you for choosing this, for choosing me. Thank you for being worth choosing." Outside, sirens wailed. More hunters, probably. Or maybe just police, responding to reports of an explosion. It didn't matter. They had each other. They had forever. And they were finally, truly free. They stood on a hill overlooking the city as dawn approached. The skyline glowed with the promise of sunrise, a sight that would have meant death for Calethorn just days ago. Now, with the bond complete, he could feel the sun's approach without fear. The human part of Mara that lived in him now provided protection, just as his vampire strength lived in her. "It's beautiful," Mara said softly, watching the horizon lighten from black to deep blue to gold. "You're beautiful," Calethorn replied. He wasn't looking at the sunrise. She turned to him, seeing him clearly for the first time. Not as a vampire or a king, but as simply Calethorn, someone who'd been lost for centuries and had finally found home. "I can feel you," she said, touching her chest where the bond pulsed warm and steady. "Not just your emotions, your thoughts, your memories, all of you. And I feel you, your kindness, your courage, your hope," he smiled. "I've lived 800 years, Mara. I've seen empires rise and fall, witnessed wonders and horrors beyond counting. But I've never felt anything like this. Like being whole. Is it always going to be this intense?"
No.
"Elena says it will settle, become more natural. We'll still be connected, but we'll learn to give each other privacy. Space when we need it," he took her hand. "But we'll never truly be apart again." "Forever is a long time," Mara said, trying to wrap her mind around it. "I'm going to live for centuries now. Watch everyone I know grow old and die." Yes, his voice was gentle. "That's the hardest part of immortality. But you won't face it alone. And there are others, the refugees at the safe house, vampires like Marcus and Lily. They'll be your family too." "What about the Order? The Council?" Calethorn looked out over the city. "The Order will lick their wounds. Hayes will report that the bonded king is too powerful to face directly. They'll retreat, regroup, maybe try again in a few decades. But we'll be ready. And Cassandra?" His expression darkened. "She'll realize her plan failed. That instead of getting me killed, she created something she can't control. A bonded king with human compassion and vampire power." He squeezed her hand. "She'll come eventually. Try to eliminate the threat we represent. Should I be scared? Probably. I am," he smiled faintly. "But that's what makes us strong. We know we're vulnerable. We know we can be hurt. That knowledge keeps us careful." keeps us human, in the ways that matter. The sun crested the horizon, spilling golden light across the world. Mara tensed instinctively, waiting for Calethorn to burn. But nothing happened. He stood in the dawn light, his pale skin warming with color for the first time in centuries. "I'd forgotten," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "What sunrise looked like. What warmth felt like." Tears streamed down his face, surprising him, surprising her. He touched his cheek, staring at the moisture on his fingers. "I didn't think I could still cry," he said wonderingly. Mara wiped his tears with her thumb. "You're different now. We both are. Better, I hope." "Definitely better." She leaned against him, his cold skin warming gradually in the sun. "So what do we do now? Where do we go?" "Anywhere you want. We have time. Centuries of it. I want to help people," Mara said slowly, the idea forming as she spoke. "The refugees at the safe house, they need protection, guidance. And there must be others out there. Vampires hunted by the Order, humans caught in the crossfire. People who need someone strong enough to stand between them and danger." Calethorn looked at her with something like awe. "You want to become what I tried to be. A protector." Mara corrected. "We become what you tried to be. Together." "Together," he echoed. "I like the sound of that." Below them, the city began to wake. Cars moved on distant highways. Lights flickered on in windows. Life continuing, oblivious to the supernatural battle that had raged in its shadows. "They don't know what we saved them from," Mara observed. "They don't need to know. That's not why we do it." Calethorn turned her to face him, his gray eyes, no longer black, no longer cold, meeting hers. "I made you a promise in that diner. Do you remember?" Mara thought back to that first night, when he'd appeared in the doorway like a dark prince. "You said you'd protect my world because I protected yours." "I meant it." Every word. He cupped her face gently. "But it's not your world anymore. It's ours. And we'll protect it together. From the Order, from the Council, from anything that threatens the innocent." "That's a big responsibility."
Yes.
"But we're not the same people who walked into that diner 5 days ago," he smiled. "We're stronger now. Wiser. Complete." Mara felt it through the bond, his absolute certainty, his unshakable commitment. And beneath it, something she'd never expected to find in a vampire king.
Love.
Pure, deep, eternal love. "I love you too," she said, realizing she'd felt it growing for days but hadn't named it until now. "Is that the bond talking, or is it real? Does it matter?" Calethorn asked. "The bond connected us because our souls resonated. Because we were always meant to find each other. The love is real, Mara. As real as the sunrise." He kissed her then, gentle, careful, full of promise. And Mara kissed him back, tasting eternity on his lips. When they pulled apart, the sun had fully risen. A new day. A new beginning. "Ready?" Calethorn asked, offering his hand. Mara looked at that hand, the one marked with silver, bound to hers forever. She thought about everything that had changed, everything she'd gained and lost, the waitress she'd been, and the warrior she was becoming. She took his hand without hesitation. "Ready." They walked down the hill together, toward the city and whatever future awaited them. The bond blazed between them, stable, strong, eternal. Two souls merged into something greater than the sum of their parts. A vampire king who'd learned to love again. A human woman who'd learned she was stronger than she ever imagined. Together, they would change the world. But first, they had a safe house full of refugees to protect, a vampire council to challenge, and an order to keep at bay. Forever was a long time. But Mara was ready for it. They both were.